All right, so we're diving deep into Allan Kardec's The Spirits book, specifically Part 2, Chapter 8, on the Emancipation of the Soul.
Yeah, this chapter is a real head trip.
It is.
Yeah.
So much to unpack here. What do you think makes this chapter, and the Spirits book in general, so fascinating?
Well, for me, it's the whole dialogue format. Kardec just lays out these questions to spirits, and these spirits are talking through mediums, by the way, and then he shares their answers with us.
It really is like we're eavesdropping on a conversation with the other side. It's spooky and intriguing all at the same time. It's like we're getting a first-hand account,
Yeah, exactly. No sugarcoating, just straight from the source.
Exactly. So in this chapter, Kardec's tackling some big questions. What happens to our souls when we're not here in the physical world? What can they do when they're not, well, stuck with us?
Right. And he starts by getting right to the heart of it. He asks the spirits, point blank, do incarnate spirits, souls with bodies, stay in their bodies willingly?
What do they say? Do they like hanging out with us?
Not really. It's a pretty hard no from them.
Huh. They really are like prisoners wanting to break free. I guess it makes sense. The denser the physical body, the more the soul wants out, right?
Well, that's what they're saying.
It's not just us humans who feel trapped sometimes. Maybe our souls are in on that feeling too. That's kind of a wild thought.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, does our soul's desire for freedom push us to explore, to learn, to connect with something bigger?
Could be that yearning for something more, That could be the soul tugging at us.
I like that. Makes me want to listen to my gut more often. Speaking of the soul wanting to be free, let's talk about sleep. It's like the ultimate escape, right?
Absolutely. The spirits have some interesting things to say about that, too.
Lay it on me.
Okay, so during sleep, they say the connection between the soul and the body loosens up. Gives the soul a chance to roam free, to connect with other spirits.
Like a nightly vacation for our souls. It's
Yeah.
too bad we can't remember any of it.
Right. It'd be amazing to remember all those adventures. But the spirits say even though we don't remember, those experiences still impact us.
I've had those moments. You wake up and you just have this feeling, this idea that you can't explain. Maybe that's what they're talking about, some kind of message from the other side.
Maybe. It's kind of a cool thought.
Souls are out there traveling the cosmos while we sleep. But what about dreams? Do the spirits have anything to say about those?
They do. They say dreams are proof of how free the soul can be when we're asleep. They could be memories of past lives, glimpses of the future, even chats with other spirits. Who knows?
So those crazy dreams I have, maybe they're not so crazy after all. That's actually kind of comforting.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing, though, to think that our dreams could be windows into other realities.
Yeah, it makes you rethink what's real and what's not. The spirits even compare sleep to a daily death. Like the state we're in during sleep, it's similar to what we'll experience after we die, they say.
Hold on. A daily death. That's a little intense.
Intense, but interesting. And get this, the spirits say more evolved spirits might spend their sleep time in higher realms. But less evolved ones, they might be drawn to places that are even, well, less evolved than Earth.
Whoa, okay. Now I'm really curious about where my soul hangs out while I'm sleeping. We talked about spiritual connections, about the soul being free. What about visiting loved ones who have passed on? Can that happen during sleep?
Kardec thought about that too. He asked the spirits directly if these visits are possible, and they said yes. They confirmed our souls can connect with our loved ones while we sleep.
So even though we might not remember, those visits could be happening. That's comforting, but also a little bittersweet,
I know what you mean. I wonder what kind of conversations are happening in those unseen realms.
Do our thoughts and desires have any influence on these nocturnal visits? Can we make them happen just by thinking about someone before we go to sleep?
Kardec was curious about that too. The spirits say that while we can't force those visits, our thoughts and desires can play a role. So if you're thinking about a loved one, you might increase your chances of connecting with them in the spirit world.
I'll have to try that tonight. But before I drift off to dreamland, let's talk about something else that fascinated Kardec, the transmission of thought. He was intrigued by how similar ideas pop up in different places at the same time. And guess what? The spirits had an explanation for that too.
It all circles back to the soul being free during sleep. They say spirits might be communicating with each other while we sleep, exchanging ideas, and when we wake up, we remember those ideas as our own. They even suggest spirits can talk to each other while we're awake, but it's harder.
Wait, so you're saying our thoughts could be influenced by spirits even when we're wide awake? That's kind of spooky, but also really cool.
It makes you wonder where our thoughts come from, doesn't it?
Definitely. The spirits make it sound like there's this constant flow of information between the spirit world and our world. like a cosmic internet or something.
That's a great way to put it. A cosmic internet. We're all plugged in, whether we realize it or not.
I need a minute to process all of this. It's a lot to take in, you know? Our souls are having adventures while we sleep. We might be communicating with spirits living and dead, and maybe our thoughts aren't even entirely our own. It's overwhelming.
It is a lot, but it's also incredibly exciting, don't you think?
Yeah, it really is. It opens up a whole new way of looking at the world and ourselves.
Mm.
So where do we go from here? What other wild ideas did Kardec and the spirits dive into in this chapter?
Well, things get even more interesting from here. Kardec starts exploring a bunch of different states of awareness, things like lethargy, catalepsy, apparent death, even somnambulism, ecstasy, and second sight. We're talking expanded consciousness, the soul doing its own thing.
Okay, those are some big words and even bigger concepts. I'm ready for more. Let's tackle those in part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay, you ready to dive into some of these altered states? You know, Kardec uses these experiences to show us the soul's potential, like how it can act independently of the body.
I am so ready. Especially curious about lethargy and catalepsy. Always found those super mysterious.
Yeah, they're pretty wild. The spirits use those states to show there's more to a human being than just the physical body.
So basically, the body's on pause, but the spirit's still out there doing its thing.
That's the gist of it. And with lethargy, they say the soul cannot really leave the body for a bit. Makes it look like the person's, well, dead.
Whoa, so someone could be declared dead, but they're just in lethargy. Their soul's out for a walk. That's crazy. Makes you wonder if some people in history who were thought to be dead were actually just, taking a soul nap.
It's a possibility. Really makes you think about what it means to be alive. Now, let's move on to somnambulism, or sleepwalking.
Sleepwalking. What do the spirits have to say about that?
They say it's like dreaming, but even more unchained, if you will. The soul's even more free, has even greater spiritual perception.
So the sleepwalker's body is moving around, but their soul is having even wilder adventures. That explains why sleepwalkers sometimes do such strange things, like things they'd never do while awake.
Exactly. The spirits say they're more open to communication from other spirits and might even be able to perceive things beyond their physical senses, like a heightened awareness.
Okay, so souls going on solo missions during lethargy, having wild adventures while sleepwalking. What about ecstasy? Didn't the spirits mention that too?
Yep. They call it a refined form of somnambulism. The soul, they say, can actually get glimpses of higher realms and experience the happiness of those who reside there.
Like a sneak peek of the afterlife. I can see why someone experiencing that wouldn't want to come back to Earth.
It's described as profoundly joyful. They even mention that people in this state often express a desire to leave the earthly realm altogether.
Maybe those moments of ecstasy, those are glimpses of our soul's true home, a place where we're meant to be eventually.
It's a beautiful thought, like our time here is just a journey, a school for the soul.
Okay, so we've talked about all sorts of heightened spiritual perception. What about second sight? Do the spirits have anything to say about that?
Oh, they do. They describe it as the soul's ability to see, hear, feel things beyond the physical body, even while awake.
So like superpowers, seeing ghosts, predicting the future, stuff like that. Always been fascinated by those stories.
They suggest it's more common than we think. Lots of people have experienced second sight without even realizing it.
Like when you have a gut feeling that turns out to be true, or you think of someone right before they call.
Exactly. The spirits say those could be glimpses of our soul's innate abilities.
So if we all have these abilities, why don't we use them more often? What's holding us back?
That's where our connection to the physical world comes in. The spirits say our physical bodies can act as a veil, blocking our soul's full potential. But sometimes things like illness or intense emotions, they can thin that veil.
So the soul's always there, working behind the scenes. But sometimes we get a clearer view of its power. And the more we evolve spiritually, the thinner that veil becomes.
Exactly. We're all on a journey of spiritual awakening. And these experiences, they offer us glimpses of what's possible.
This is also mind-blowing. But what's the takeaway here? How does all of this relate to us in our everyday lives?
Yeah, it really makes you think. After exploring all this with Kardec, what's the big takeaway? What does it mean for us, as we go about our lives?
It's more than just like ghost stories or weird experiences, right? This is about the nature of our existence, the bigger picture.
Absolutely. Kardec is pushing us to question our assumptions about reality, about life and death. He's showing us that the soul can function on its own, even if just for a little bit.
It's mind-blowing. Our consciousness, our true selves, they're not limited by our bodies.
Right. Makes you see death in a whole new light. If our souls can do all this while we're still alive, imagine what they can do when they're completely free.
Wow. It becomes less of an ending and more of like a liberation, a freedom from limits. Our journey doesn't just stop, it continues.
Yeah, it's a continuation. And it also makes you think about those we've lost, you know? It suggests we can still connect with them on a spiritual level.
That's a really comforting thought. I like that. It's not goodbye, it's see you later.
See you later, exactly. And it makes you think about how we live our lives now, you know? If our souls carry all our experiences, our knowledge, well, it makes sense to focus on growth and kindness.
It's not just about what we do, but who we become. Our actions, our thoughts, they all matter.
And that's a big part of what Kardec is saying. We're not just along for the ride. We have the power to shape our destinies in this life and the next.
That's powerful, but also a little scary. It means we have a responsibility to make the most of our time to be the best versions of ourselves.
It's a challenge, for sure. But it's also incredibly exciting. And remember, this is just one chapter. Kardec goes even deeper, explores so much more about the spirit world in his other work.
Well, this deep dive has definitely left me with a lot to ponder. I feel like there's so much more to reality than what we see. It's given me a sense of hope, a sense of wonder about what comes next.
That's the beauty of Kardec's work. It opens our minds to new possibilities. It encourages us to explore those mysteries.
And to our listener, if you've been enjoying this journey into the Spirits book, I encourage you to keep exploring. There's a whole universe of insights waiting to be discovered.
And as you continue your exploration, I'll leave you with this. If our souls can experience such freedom and expanded awareness while still tied to our bodies, what incredible possibilities await us when they're finally liberated? That's something to think about.
It is a lot to think about. Thanks for joining us on this incredible exploration of the emancipation of the soul. Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep exploring the wonders of the unseen world.